just to start over, I'm Bruce Brandis. I am very, very happy to be here. The Beckers event, to me, represents the best of a class of a lot of really good opportunities that we as an industry have to get together, to network and learn from each other. And if you think about where healthcare is and where healthcare needs to go, the best way for us to advance the industry is to have your trusted peers collaborate to give you insights on what their experiences have been and what they're seeing and where they're going. And today, what I wanted to share with you is a new platform that we're launching actually at this event, which we've been working on all this year, that is designed to take the collaboration and spirit of what happens at events like this Becker's Roundtable and enables you to be able to put it in your pocket and have it with you all year long. So I look forward to sharing more with you over the next 30 minutes and then leaving time for us to have questions and answers at the end. I'll step you through why and how this idea has evolved, what exactly we've built and with whom we're working and how it works, as well as telling you how and when you can be involved in what we're doing. First, let me give you a little bit of background on myself just to give you context. So I've spent 25 years in healthcare on the healthcare IT side working with vendors, started with IBM, and then worked for a series of growth stage software and technology companies focused on the healthcare market. And most recently, I was Chief Strategy Officer for a company called Airstrip, which was pioneering the use of mobility in healthcare back before people really knew what mobility in healthcare meant. And the summer of 2009, we were asked to be on the keynote stage behind Steve Jobs at the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference, which as you can imagine, is a really exciting time. And through that, we got to know a lot of the really smart tech people out on the West Coast who were coming to fix healthcare. And I think many of you have seen those people, and we've actually seen it over the last several decades, is people from outside of healthcare see dollar signs in healthcare and want to invest to come to be part of it. But I think we all know that healthcare actually does work very differently than other industries. I live in Nashville, and one observation that I made being in Nashville, where there are so many healthcare entrepreneurs building the healthcare services business over the last several decades, that if you could take those really smart tech people and somehow buddy them up with the really smart bricks and mortar healthcare services folks, that you could really have a very interesting collaboration for potentially disruptive opportunity. And one of the people who I shared that with in Nashville was Charlie Martin, who's a lifer in the hospital business. Most recently, he was founder and CEO of Vanguard Health Systems, which he sold to Tenn at the end of 2013. And Charlie reached out to me and a number of other folks and said, hey, how about we put some money in a fund and see if we can do this whole intersection of healthcare and technology thing and see if we can make a difference in advancing where healthcare needs to go without being encumbered by some of the legacy interests that make it difficult to do while you're running hospitals. So that was my journey in joining Charlie as managing director at Martin Ventures. And as I joined him, I made three observations. The first is one that I'd made over the course of my whole career, which frankly maybe some of you have the battle scars to prove, which is healthcare is a market that has been oversold and underdelivered for as long as I can remember, and I don't think it's served anyone well. The other two observations I made when I started to join Martin Ventures was, first, all of the entrepreneurs that were coming to us that were looking for capital weren't so much looking for capital as they were looking for customers. They just thought they needed capital to hire a big sales team to be led by the guy who was the #1 sales rep from HBOC in 1998 because he has a big Rolodex. And unfortunately, I think we would all agree that that's not necessarily the model that we want to continue. And then the third observation that I made as we started to listen to healthcare executives from across the country on what they were challenged with, what opportunities they were seeing, there was really a consistent request that we had, which was, particularly as we were explaining to them what we were doing at Martin Ventures, the request was, can you help us to filter this universe of shiny things? Because we keep getting inundated by people who have our next solution for blank, and they all sound the same to us. And the reality is one of two things happens. Either we end up taking meetings with people, and 2 minutes into a meeting that we've dedicated an hour to, we realize we're wasting our time. And then once that happens a few too many times, to prevent that from happening, we basically put in a policy where we've put up a Chinese wall to keep everybody out so that we don't waste that time. And then our biggest fear is that there's some innovations that are happening that we don't know about that frankly are really important for us if we had only known about it. So that request came. So that was kind of a backdrop of the observations that I made. And the market really has confirmed that these observations and show it to be a growing problem. I'll kind of step you through this chart in a moment, but if you just think about what's happening in healthcare today, both on the provider side and the payer side, we have a tremendous amount of consolidation. So you have fewer and fewer decision-making entities, and at the same time you have fewer and fewer decision makers within those organizations. But at the same time, we have this explosion in the number of new vendors who are being formed, and the entrepreneurs and investors who are backing them and starting this, who are all trying to call on the exact same finite number of organizations. And so if you just look just in the last 18 months alone, just in digital health, there have been over $8 billion of investment in new companies to advance, trying to get a piece of your time as a healthcare executive. And so frankly, the math just doesn't work. There has to be a better way. And if you read this quote from Dr. Hochman, the CEO of Providence, every vendor has a solution for you, and it's hard to separate the wheat from the chaff. Having a methodology by which you can really evaluate technology, for me as a CEO, is essential. And so what I took from this statement was, we already have enough vendors. What we really need as an industry is to figure out among all those vendors who are the true solution providers where real innovation and real advancement can happen. Let me describe to you a little bit more, in a little more detail, some of the examples of what we heard from the healthcare executives that we discussed with. First of all, it's hard to find superior solutions. I spoke with the chief strategy officer of a $5 billion community health system, and he was describing to me how his innovation team works. And he basically described, we have 4 people whose job it is basically to work with all of our service lines, all of our operating units, to understand what their challenges are and to help them to find viable solutions. And as we funnel those requests, what occurs to us is we really don't have any real place to go to find that out, so we're going to Google and Googling for solutions. We're going to conferences like this. We're going to our industry associations and professional networks. We're checking LinkedIn and pinging people who we happen to know to, hey, what are you using for this? And it's a very fragmented and difficult way to search. And actually, this particular chief strategy officer considered outsourcing innovation to a third party just because they didn't know how to do it very well. And then they realized, gosh, innovation is really core to our business. We might need help, but we don't necessarily want to abdicate control over it. So basically the ask was, can you help us find what's out there? Then the second story is that most of these companies offer a product, and that product is not necessarily a solution. So what we heard, for example, from a chief nursing officer from a large faith-based system was describing to us, if I'm trying to improve my quality metrics for wound care, there's no one product that is my solution for wound care. What I really need to do is piece together some products, some services, some software, some devices, and figure out how that works within my environment of what I already have to see if collectively this can help us to advance this strategic initiative. So individual products are really only part of a comprehensive solution, and the onus today is very difficult to piece together those solutions. The third observation that we made and story we heard was that collaboration today is very, very inefficient. So we talked to a chief strategy officer of another national health system who was describing to us that today they don't have time to come to all the events that they might like to come to be able to do what you all have the opportunity here at the Becker's event to do, which is to network with your peers and hear how are you solving these problems, or what do you know about this particular product. And so the opportunity then exists for them. What he did was he created, or as part of a consortium of his peers, there are 40 chief marketing officers that are part of just a private group that get together twice a year, people in the same seat from across the country, just to talk about how are you doing this, or what are you challenged with, and how have you solved for that. And ultimately, what they really need is a way in between those two meetings to be able to collaborate on a regular basis with their peers when ideas and opportunities arise, to be able to, in a very quick and simple way, get insights from the people who they know and trust. And then the third, or the fourth observation that we made, we heard from the CEO of another multi-hospital system that owns 30 hospitals across 6 different markets across the country. And the observation that the CEO made was, every one of my 30 hospitals is great at something. And then another one of my hospitals is great at something else. Our biggest challenge is we, within our organization, particularly as they had grown by acquisition, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and we need to figure out a better way to align internally, understanding how this organization got to be so great at this. And the other note that he made was, if I could ever get every one of those 30 hospitals performing at the same high standard level that one of their peers within our own system has already demonstrated is possible, if we could ever get everyone performing at that same level, it would be transformative, not only for us as a health system, but more importantly for the communities that we serve. At the same time, as I'm describing the problem on the healthcare organization side, it's not working on the vendor side either, by the way. The biggest frustration that we've heard from companies is that they can't get your attention. And it goes back to the point that Dr. Hotchman made, which is you don't have time to talk to all of them. But the reality is the biggest risk of failure that we have for the most innovative solutions that are coming out is that they don't ever get noticed. And oftentimes these solutions are being, and these companies are being started by a scientist or a physician or an engineer who has great ideas and really a great solution. But you know what they're really likely not good at? Is selling and networking, because it's just not in their DNA. So their default, when they realize they've got something really promising here, and they may even have a few customers who've really proven that this is actually something that could be transformative, what they end up doing is the same thing that we've always done, which is let me have to go hire a bunch of salespeople to go knock on doors. And by doing that, what we're doing is really just exacerbating the same problem that got us into this situation in the first place. So the belief is from all of these entrepreneurs that we've seen who've built things, or even established companies who've built a better model for something, their biggest challenge is they really want to have their happy customers be their best asset for growing their company. But what we need to do is give a vehicle for those happy customers to be able to collaborate and communicate and share that experience so that we don't have to fall back on making the problem worse by creating more noise by hiring bigger and bigger sales organizations. So in summary of the problem, just to depress the entire room, it's broken for everyone. So healthcare organizations need to be able to innovate faster with greater clarity and lower risk. I think we realize for the first time in healthcare, do nothing is no longer an option for many of the things that we're challenged with. So we have to be able to innovate, and we don't have the amount of time to make decisions that we used to. And then also on the and I'll use this term deliberately, solution providers must raise the visibility of their solutions and deliver the value that they promise to separate themselves from the noise that is the broader vendor community. So how can we fix this? And think about for a moment, consider in your personal lives the common tasks that you perform every day that have become infinitely easier, cheaper, more simple. Just in the last couple of years, think about how you plan a vacation, how you research and buy a car, how you try to find and read a book, how you eat out, how you order in, how you find a spouse, how you hook up with someone if you don't want to find a spouse, how you hail a cab, how you find a plumber. I mean, think about how much easier our lives are with so many of these platforms. I would suggest to you that saving someone's life by having a health system that operates with a more coordinated care and with more efficient care delivery is a whole lot more important than saving $10 a night on a hotel. The challenge is, in healthcare today, we don't have access to anything like this that borrows from these concepts. So today, though, in healthcare, we're on the grade of great innovations, and many of you are probably familiar with many of them today, and part of your being here is to share those experiences, whether it be around virtual care, patient engagement, population health, data analytics. Those terms that we hear at every conference that we've been at in the last several years, does anybody even really know what those mean? It's so broad and vague to truly understand, okay, I agree I need to do population health. I agree I need to do patient engagement, but how do I get started and what does that really look like and how does that work in my environment? And the way you figure that out is by collaborating with your peers who've already figured out pieces of that. And so the real observation here is how can we learn from all of these other industries that have already figured out how to leverage the power of community enabled by technology to shift advantage to buyers to be able to make better decisions faster, cheaper. And that's really why I'm here today, is to announce to you a new company, a new initiative called Lucro. And Lucro is specifically designed to be a new marketplace to reinvent how we connect the buyers and sellers of innovative solutions for healthcare. And let me tell you a little bit more in the next 15, 20 minutes or so to tell you a little bit more about exactly what we've built and where we are on this journey, and ultimately how you can help. So the idea started after I joined Charlie at Martin Ventures, and we started to hear a consistent theme from the folks we were talking to. And so what we did was tapped into my network of back to working with the smart Silicon Valley tech people who wanted to fix healthcare, circled back with them and got connected with a digital design firm and a development shop that had built many of those technologies that you've seen and truly understand multi-sided platforms and how they're built, how they work, the business model behind them. They knew nothing of healthcare, and which was great. That was exactly what we wanted, was somebody who knew nothing of healthcare but understood those things. And so what we did was we arranged for them to talk to about 25 different healthcare executives from health systems, health plans, large self-insured employers, physician practices, and actually some vendors as well, to understand how they do things today and what their issues were. And they listened with their ear, not with our collective healthcare ear, but with their ear on what can we borrow from and learn from these other systems. And so with that, they came back and it was very clear as to what we needed to build, and that frankly it was taking from things that already exist today. It was a piece of many of these other products and platforms that we use already today in our personal lives. And what we heard as we then circled back with those health systems and healthcare executives that were advising us on this, what we heard that they really wanted was, I need something that's trusted, I need something that's secure, I need something that's simple and yet comprehensive. I need a way to take the experience I get at a Becker's roundtable and have it in my pocket, available to me whenever I need it, all the time. And so we then went out on a journey to get an early adopter network of healthcare executives and healthcare organizations that could help us on this journey. We have today healthcare organizations that represent over 1,000 hospitals that are in our early adopter network. We have voices from health plans, from large employers, from surgery centers, and all the other areas of healthcare to make sure that we're building something that will serve the broader needs of the industry. And we actually have been developing this over the last several months and delivered our first release of the beta version to our early adopters in October. They have another release that's coming out next week. And they're really helping us to shape and prioritize what this needs to be. At the same time, I'll explain to you how it works on the solution provider side and how the information gets in. But ultimately, the concept is to create a multi-sided platform that allows buyers and sellers in a private way to be able to connect and get insights with just the facts about what a particular company does. So what we've done on the vendor side is we've actually created a solution card, which is really the smallest piece of currency of just the facts about a particular business. We've taken publicly available data to make that available, around which our community can enter in their ratings and reviews and comments about a particular organization. I'll describe to you what the call to action is on the vendor side to get them more actively involved and to make sure that the information around which we're collaborating is as comprehensive and accurate as it needs to be to truly make a difference. And the other thing I want to highlight for you is one of the other lessons that we learned from all of these other platforms that we use in our daily lives is and again, back to my first observation that healthcare has been oversold and underdelivered for a very long time. It's really important to us that there is no charge for what we're doing here to be part of being engaged in this community, whether you're a healthcare organization or a solutions provider. So let me describe to you a little bit about how it works, first in wearing the hat as a healthcare organization. And I'll step you through this. Let's just pick an example. Say I'm the chief medical officer of a multi-hospital system, and I'm challenged with developing a strategy for virtual care. And the first thing that I would probably want to do, and whether I as the chief medical officer do this, or I have a team of folks doing it, or I assign it to someone to do some research for me, regardless, we need a way to have someone be able to go out and provide a comprehensive view into all of the products and services that are out there that fall under the category of virtual care. And then once I have that long list of vendors, what I really need to be able to do is control how I choose to filter that information. So it may be that I want to see things that are rated 3 stars or higher within my network, or 3 stars or higher across the community. It may be that I want to filter out anyone who works exclusively with payers, because I might want someone who's going to develop a virtual care program who understands how hospitals work. It may be that I want to filter out, I don't want to be anybody's first customer. I want to make sure that they have at least X number of clients before. So we give you the control as you have this list of virtual care solutions to kind of get that down to a more finite list from which you can evaluate. Then the second thing, once you filter that, what we've heard is people want to be able to organize. So again, around virtual care, what I really want to do is I find a solution that might be a piece of it. It might be the technology piece, it might be the services piece, it might be the operational piece, whether it come from a services company, a technology company. And when I come across a company that's interesting to me or a product that's interesting, I have the ability to create a project board where I can pin that particular solution to that project board for me to review later or share with my peers. So again, if you think about other projects that you might have in your personal life where you're coming across things that are interesting and you pin it, this gives you an opportunity to organize a more finite group where, again, back to the point that individual products aren't the solution. It's how I group together all of those multiple products that it starts to become a solution. Then the other thing that is really important once I get to that point, I may want to collaborate with my peers. And this is where the opportunity to create private groups, similar to how you might in other platforms create a private group that you control. So we have a broader community that are just the healthcare organizations. But within that group, you may want to invite, back to the chief marketing officer who has a network of 40 chief marketing officers that we trust. I'll create a private group for that. I may also want to create a private group just for the clinical advisory committee within my own organization that I can compare notes with, and then be able to share my project board, allow them to weigh in with their comments, their ratings, their reviews. I can put in a poll, hey, do you think this would work in our Kansas City market? Here's what I'm thinking. And they can answer back, and I can get that information in a way that's a lot more efficient than in-person meetings or emails, but to be able to have a platform for that type of trusted collaboration. The other thing that you may want to be able to do, there are a lot of third-party data points that are very valuable when you're making decisions, but they're still just data points, whether it's an industry association or another trusted advisor outside. What I really want to be able to do is, okay, I can see that this third-party group has rated this particular product very high, but what I really want to be able to do is digest that and see how does that fit in to my environment in a broader way. So I see that this product is highly rated, but does it work with my IT environment? Can the Center for Medical Interoperability, for example, certify that this will work with my Meditech and NextGen environment? And what does my GPO say about this? Do we have it on contract? And if so, are pricing and terms favorable as compared to the other options I'm looking at? And then the other thing I may want to do is check within our own organization, hey, do we have any experience in actually successfully deploying this solution? And if we do or we don't, that could be a data point to decide. It might be, all of those are data points that help you to make a more comprehensive decision by looking at, it's great that this third party rated this product highly, and it may be the best product in the market, but it's not right for us because of these other variables as I digest all of that information together in context. The other thing that we were requested, particularly for multi-hospital systems, is back to the analogy that the CEO used of how do we better collaborate internally. What they asked for was essentially a private group on steroids, which gives them the opportunity to privately take an inventory of what is it that we have, and then if we have it, are we using it? And if we are using it, what do the people who are closest to it really think of it? Do they like it or do they not like it? And so we've created the foundation for them to be able to take that kind of private inventory, and they get input from their own people on what are we using, what do we like. And so if I'm in one market and I go out to try to start an initiative, I can learn from the knowledge and experiences that my peers in other markets may have. And so I think that's really critical if we're going to accelerate innovation. And an example, I had a CFO who said, and this is you'll hear the way that this is going to evolve is by getting great ideas from people who understand this problem well, and we are on this journey. We haven't completed the journey, but this is a great example of someone, when we were explaining this to a CFO of a multi-hospital system last week, she said, if I could only be able to know of all of the vendors that I have where contracts are expiring in the next 12 months, where our own people said that it's a 2-star or less in this area, we don't like it. Why on earth are we continuing to renew with a company that's not doing a good job for us? What are my alternatives if I were to replace it? And how do those alternatives fit into the environment that we have today? There's got to be a better way. So those are examples of how the functionality that we've delivered today and that we're delivering over the next several weeks in the final version of the beta release, how that works. And now let me briefly explain how the concept on the solution provider side works. I'd mentioned the concept of a vendor profile and a solution card, which what we heard from the healthcare organizations is, we don't need to know everything that there is to know about a company as we're just starting to browse for solutions. I really don't even want to know everything that's on their website with the glasses half full version of the story. What I really want is a very concise and structured way to have just the facts about their business. What I want to know is, what do they do? How is it different? What are the benefits? And how does it work? And then obviously around those facts, the comments and ratings and reviews of people in the broader community of the Lucro marketplace, of people who are in my private network, and the people who are within my organization. And I want to see all of their comments and ratings and let that help to inform what I think of this. So what we do, this is essentially the basic building block where we've pre-populated, again, based on publicly available data, basic information about over 10,000 companies and growing. If you just look at digital health, healthcare IT, medical devices and equipment, and services companies, there are at least 22,000 vendors trying to call on, maybe 500 decision-making entities across the 5,000 hospitals that we have. And the reality is, back to the math doesn't work. So what we want to do is allow each one of those companies not just to take the information that we scrape. That's just the basic information around which this can be done. So you'll hear in a moment, one of the calls to action is to invite all of the solution providers out there to claim and curate their content in a very structured way on their unique link on their solution card so they can report the facts about what they have. And that's going to be a big part of our effort in the next 3 to 4 months as we build out the network, is to make sure that it's not just basic information, but actually a more robust reporting of what they do and details around the product. You can imagine where this can go as we get that level of vendor engagement. And one of the ways that this is happening is our early adopters are reaching out to the vendors who serve them today, saying, we would like you to claim and curate your solution card on Lucro. We have the CIO of a major national health system who told us, my goal for this is very soon to get to a place where I can make it our corporate policy that we don't take cold calls from vendors anymore. What we do is we redirect them to make sure their content is claimed and curated on the Lucro marketplace, and we will then go back and look at that, and if based on our research it looks like it could be a fit for us, we'll be back in touch with you. And we think that that will help us to achieve the result that we're looking for, which is a much more efficient use of everyone's time and getting the facts out there. The other good news that I'll share is solution providers really love this platform and this idea, because what we've heard from them is, look, we have happy customers, and we really want to make sure that we give them a voice, and that's the goal of how the solution card would work. Let me share with you just a little bit more about how we've come together. I mentioned that we have some of the largest health systems in the country that are backing us. It was really important to us as we formed this that no one perceived that this was a vehicle for us to find the way to promote the latest Martin Ventures-backed company, because that is not our intention at all. We really want this to be a platform that is for the healthcare marketplace, to have an open and honest place for you to collaborate in a trusted way with your peers. So we've deliberately put together an advisory board of people who we believe are above the fray, who understand these issues. We have representatives from the Gates Foundation, from Rand Health, from Kaiser, and we think collectively the ask that I had of our advisory board was help us make sure that we build something that really becomes a utility for the industry to innovate in a much better way than they're able to today. And so I'm very privileged to have these individuals aligned with us today. So we think that Lucro is very well positioned to really make a very meaningful difference in healthcare. There are two reasons why we think we are well positioned to do this. One is we're not encumbered by any legacy interests. We don't have something we're afraid to disrupt, whether it be an exhibit hall or other interests that exposing what really the market thinks would somehow threaten us. The other is we have a great start in building the community between our early adopters who I shared with you and our advisory board and a number of our partners, which include the Center for Medical Interoperability. I think it's a really important foundation from which to build. The reason I'm here today is threefold. One is to say, well, and actually collectively to say that we can't do this on our own. This platform will only be as valuable as everyone in this room, everyone in our network today, and everyone across the industry can make it. So it is our commitment that we will make this available and continue to make it trusted and to continue to evolve it so that it meets the short-term needs, and also as the industry grows, to make sure that we're very deliberate in how we tend to the care and feeding of the platform. I wanted to mention to you today, we have our early adopters represent 1,000 hospitals. We've asked them to essentially start the conversation for us. So that's really where we are today. We have them engaged. We have the conversation started. They are beginning to start to share it across their organizations in a very limited way at this point. The goal is between now and the end of the first quarter of 2016 for it to be shared enterprise-wide within those big health systems. And at that time, we'll make it generally available for the marketplace as a whole. I did want to invite any of you, as being part of the Becker's event, any of you who would like to be part of this, to be included in the next wave of users. Please come see me or shoot me an email. I'll give you my email in a moment, and let me know, and we'll make sure in January that, that you get that release and become part of the community. The other purpose in being here, the second, is to make sure that and it's a call to action now to all of the vendors who aspire to be solution providers out there, to make sure that they reach out to us today. They can go to their website. We've already created a solution card for your products and for your company. We would invite you today to claim and curate your solution card to make sure that our early adopters, as they start to share this within their organizations, that they're working around the best insights and the best knowledge and the most comprehensive information about your solutions as they can, so that they can put that information in correctly. So I would invite you, again, there's no cost for a vendor to claim and curate their solution card. We would ask you to do that now. And then finally, I really wanted to reach out to the trusted industry associations and third-party sources of knowledge that are in the marketplace today that have already, over the last decades, have earned trust of the people in this room. We don't believe we can do this alone, and we don't believe these insights that will be created through our platform by themselves will make a difference without your involvement. So we really want to reach out to all of those independent third parties, the industry associations, to collaborate with us, to find ways, and I think everyone might be a little bit different in how we approach it, but we want to really find ways to collaborate. And the first partner that we have to collaborate in this program, for those of you who know the Center for Medical Interoperability, which is really designed to help leverage the power of all of the healthcare organizations, essentially to drive interoperability among the vendor community from an IT and medical device standpoint. They, to date on interoperability, not to go on too much of a tangent, but on interoperability, we've relied on the government and we've relied on the vendors to really set the standards by which these products will share information amongst themselves. The Center for Medical Interoperability has really taken a stand, and with their members, who are a lot of our members, have really turned the tables on the vendor community to drive greater interoperability. We're very aligned with that philosophy, which is we want to make sure that the companies that should succeed do it the right way and have the visibility and are rewarded for doing it the right way. And frankly, the products and services that are causing the noise in the marketplace, we really want them to get out of the way. And so I would ask you to join this journey that together we could help to filter the universe of the shiny things, create a better platform for better decision making, and let's advance healthcare to where it really needs to get. So with that, thank you very much for the time and attention. So let me open the floor to questions. Yes, sir.
If you are giving this service away to the solution providers and the health systems, what is your business model?
Great. And I will tell you, we've given that thought, but it hasn't been our primary focus to date. Our primary focus has been what are the problems we need to solve for healthcare organizations to be able to innovate faster and with greater clarity and lower risk. And I would tell you, like a lot of these platforms, we have a lot of ideas on premium services that we can offer, specifically to the vendor community, that will help be a better investment of their time and resources than how they today spend their sales and marketing dollars, where we can help them to get insights in how they're perceived by the marketplace, to understand who, not who specifically, but who broadly is their market, so that they can put their resources in the right direction. But really, we have a list of probably 25 different ideas, and we're sure that that will evolve over the course of 2016. But our real focus is to build the community first and solve for the problems that we know exist today. And we're very confident if we do that, there are going to be lots of ways that we'll be able to monetize it down the road. And again, without ever compromising the basic principle of this being private and trusted for the healthcare organizations and healthcare executives that are using it as the backbone of their collaboration. That's a fundamental tenet that we will never compromise. Yes, ma'am.
Do you allow for pricing transparency?
So that's part of what we've asked our early adopters as to what they might want in there, and then we have to balance that with what vendors are willing to share. So today we do not, but it's certainly on the roadmap, and it's certainly the intention that that should be part of this. We just haven't gotten as far on the journey to figure out exactly how that would work. That's, again, part of why we want to have really smart people engaged with us to help us to think through these things, whether that comes from a third party that already exists today that has that insight, or if the solution providers themselves choose to report it in their solution cards, or whether or not the healthcare organizations choose to share it themselves. We will think through that over the coming months. Yes, sir.
Hey, Bruce, talk a little bit about, if you think about TripAdvisor, one of the challenges is you don't always know what the motivation is or who
Right.
says what. And I know we've talked a little bit about this. How are you guys, and if you mentioned it earlier, I apologize, but how are you going to ensure that who adds comments or recommendations is what you want?
Thank you for asking that question, because I don't think I touched on that. It's a really important point, again, for this to be a trusted community. First of all, it's healthcare organizations only. To be able to be invited in and to be part of the network, you can't log in with your Gmail account. You can't log in with a personal email address. We will whitelist the domain of a known healthcare organization once that organization is part of the network in the community, and that will enable the person to enter in comments. We also don't allow anonymous comments. And again, keep in mind, a lot of the times when you're putting in ratings and reviews and comments, you may be doing it within your own private group. So people are more likely to share openly within their private groups. What we'll do is allow that individual, as you put in your comment, if you'd like to share it with the broader community, you can anonymize it. So it won't say that it's anonymous user, because that's one of the challenges with TripAdvisor. Hey, I don't know if this guy is someone who I can know or trust, or if they're like me. And so what we've heard is people will anonymize it and say, I'm the chief medical officer at a multi-hospital faith-based system. And so that will help give me a data point, as opposed to if it's the nurse manager at a critical access hospital. It's a different data point on that comment. So we'll anonymize it to that extent as people are willing to share. The other important point is for individuals who are in it, as we know, people in healthcare organizations may have an interest in a particular organization. One of the features that we're building in is to be able to disclose with a checkbox as you're putting in a comment about a particular company if you have a vested interest in that particular company, and it would be noted with a little asterisk by your comment. Just, it's not that the comment's not valid, but the community should know that I have a financial interest or an advisory interest in this particular company. Yes, sir.
We're here in Chicago. A couple of blocks away from here is the Merchandise Mart. There's an incubator 1871 and now a newer one called Matter that I serve on the Health System Advisory Board. There's 115 health IT startups. A couple miles away, Healthbox, and there's another 100
Yep.
health IT startups. Have they started to plug their...
So, absolutely. So I've actually, part of our discovery, I spent a lot of time with Nina Nashif at Healthbox. She provided great insight. We worked with a number of the other accelerators from across the country. And we think this is a great way to raise the visibility of their, excuse me, of their products and companies. And to that point, one of the ways that you can filter, as you're looking at solutions, on the solution card itself, the solution provider can report who their investors are or what accelerator they graduated from. And that could be, if you trust, for example, what's coming out of Healthbox, you can actually filter and say, I want to see all the innovations that have graduated in this category from Healthbox because I really trust their vetting process. So that's one of the filtering criteria that you can incorporate. And one of the calls to action today is for those accelerators and other third parties that we haven't reached out to yet, we would love to collaborate with you because we think that's a great way to build a community the right way. Yes, sir.
Two quick questions. You mentioned there's 22,000 vendors calling on hospitals, which is kind of creating this So, do you know about the average number of sales reps that a hospital, that call on an average hospital? I'm wondering if you have that as a metric. And two, who at the organizations can or are you inviting to fill out their card?
Great. So first of all, I really don't know the answer to that question, but I suspect there are people in the room who do. And I can just tell you from my personal experience, having worked on the vendor side, it's a lot. And you know, one of the biggest challenges that we face as the math no longer works is, and we continue to perpetuate the problem by hiring more and more sales reps. Those sales reps are trained, they're optimistic people by nature. They're trained to meet with the people who are willing to meet with them. The reality is they might get meetings with people who, in an organization who are not necessarily the decision makers, and based on the insight that they're getting from that meeting, they report up the chain, and then people wonder why deals slip, why the forecast isn't accurate, and why quarter after quarter this company's not growing. So we think that's a real important issue, and redirecting those dollars. And there's still clearly a place for a sales team, but we think that it needs to be allocated toward helping customers to be successful and redirect those dollars to your customers and the products being really, really successful, and let the salespeople help to your customer to be that voice. And then the other question you had was...
Who in particular are
Yeah.
you inviting to fill out their card?
So generally, based on the publicly available data we have that, on where we're reaching out to the vendors, it's whoever was on their public website as their primary contact. It's generally, in smaller companies, it's the CEO or the founder. In larger companies, it's someone in marketing or sales. So that's generally who's getting the link. And then what we're finding is they're generally sharing it with whoever the right person is in their organization to actually complete it. And I have a team of people who are dedicated to collaborating with those folks to help them to understand how to maximize this. We give them the ability to embed a brief video, for example, that overviews what they do. They can embed a brief slide deck that overviews the solution. So we have a team of people who can roll up their sleeves to work with people on the solution provider side to best represent their content.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Sure.
Is there a evidence-based, anything in regards to the provider's evidence for their solution? Is there an avenue for that to be entered here, or does that just sort of get filtered out through the community?
I think that's ultimately how it will come. Although, as you have, if you're a solution provider and you have a source of validation, there are places in the solution card for you to claim that recognition, and that becomes a source of filtering as people are looking for companies or products that meet that criteria. I want to have a sensitivity to time. I think I'm a couple minutes over. I really appreciate your time. I'll be at the conference the next couple days. I'll hang out here for the next few minutes if anyone would like to chat. Thank you very much for your time and attention and your support.